Hello, my name is Bruce Sawalski. I'm author of Canadian Wilderness Survival and chief instructor of the Boreal Wilderness Institute. And today I want to focus on one piece of survival gear, and that is the headlamp. And before I look at these modern headlamps, let's go back in time and understand that the headlamp is a fairly new piece of survival gear. First, headlamps didn't show up until the 1980s that I ever saw, and they were a pretty rare beast even then. And then eventually people figured out that that two-hand operation was really life-saving. So the first good headlamp I ever had was this headlamp here. It was a Petzl headlamp, and it was designed for super cold weather operation. And what it was is they couldn't miniaturize and put enough up in your head, and so what they did was you had this, and of course it has to be all strapped in, and then this I would wear under here, and I would put it under my parka as a way of keeping the actual batteries warm. And the batteries were special purpose batteries that had to be clipped in place. As you can see there, it was a quite annoying situation. It was really, really heavy. It was hard to take, but at 50 below, my headlamp worked. So it's like, okay, I can see why this is worth it. And of course, taking it to the Arctic and everything else suddenly changed my mind and going, you know, if this headlamp works there, maybe I can get something smaller. So the next Petzl headlamp I got was this. And this is the same kind of idea. There's a spare bulb in the back, and you can see it's still a conventional bulb, right? You can see there. That's where you put in your two Aaa batteries, and it would actually operate and allow me to drop this thing over like this. And you notice these are all banded big. They're all banded big because I would have had gear on and everything else when in terms of, toque or whatever. But there it is. So this headlamp worked. This headlamp was still fairly heavy, and it had its batteries in here so they'd get cold and everything else. It used Aaa batteries. It was just another source of use of your AA's. It wasn't great, but it worked. Then we got a new revolution, and that revolution was LED. And with LED, suddenly things changed. And they could make smaller, more compact, and much brighter headlamps. So you get ones like this, a cheap one like this, these cheap dollar store ones, and you might get 100 lumens out of them, sometimes less. They'd work reasonably well. They would generally start to fall apart. This one, you can see I had to tape back up to make it actually work. It's kind of annoying. But at a couple of dollars, you couldn't complain. Same with something like this. This one will do 200 lumens. So suddenly we started to get more lumens out of it. And a lumen is that luminosity, that ability to really shine out and work. And that's one of the reasons why people would always say, no, I don't want a headlamp, I want a flashlight. The problem with a flashlight is you got to hold the thing, right? And therefore you have one-hand operation, right? And you see people tactically, attaching them to their weapons and everything else, trying to get rid of that problem. And I can understand that. But it's still a problem. In other words, I want two-hand operation. I want to make use of both hands. So then with modern headlamps, Petzl, of course, kept going with the design. And there's two ones. This Technina is 250 lumens. And it's just a pretty basic one, and it works. It turns on. I can go a little bit of buyer mode, right? And there it is. And up to 250 lumens, it works. Very, very simple operation, and there it is. All the extra strapping and everything else is long gone. Why? Because they figured this stuff out. Gear improves. That's what life's work about. Sometimes people make gear cheaper, which is why we have junk like this, right? But if it's a company that's made professional gear, they'll keep trying to improve, trying to figure out what do you need, how does it work. My military one is this Takika, and it'll give you 350 lumens, plus it gives me the ability to, with different modes, to do either a light or a darker red. Meaning it's got tactical built right in. I know that in the old days, I used to actually strap with green duct tape, like gun tape, a red filter on the outside of this. And that's what I did. I actually taped it on. It was kind of hilariously funny. But of course, it allowed me to have two-hand operations and still use this headlamp. And that was a really big bonus. And I really liked that bonus. Something like this throws this right away. And again, it's got 350 lumens. It works really, really well. So what's the basic rules of a headlamp? Lightweight. The ability to change the batteries. In other words, you have more than one shot of batteries. Batteries will always run out. Batteries will have a problem. Rechargeables, that's great if you have the ability to recharge those batteries. That's how that works. Or you carry the recharger to recharge your headlamp, if that's the way it works. But you must be able to change those batteries. So it's got to be lightweight, it's got to work well, it should be nowadays at least 200 lumens, and it should have multiple modes so you can dull that down. Do you need this tactical light? Well, no, unless you want to keep your night vision. That's the only reason you never do it. The whole idea of that is to keep my night vision intact. And if you're not working in that situation at night, you have no need for natural night vision, then why spend the money? Don't worry about it. Get a basic, decent headlamp. If you really want, you can cheapen up and buy something like this. This is on the edge of that at 200 lumens and a reasonable, decent strap. That'll do the trick. I'm leery about dollar store headlamps because they just really are a piece of garbage most of the time, and you'll get what you pay for, right? But functionally, they work. What's the problem with a lot of them? A lot of them use what? Nowadays, AAA batteries. What's the only problem with AAA batteries? For their weight, they're not particularly efficient as a battery, meaning you get less power. Now, of course, with the bonus of having LED, we can get a lot of weight, a lot of light. But in winter, in cold weather, that will diminish down, meaning we always need to carry spare batteries. So, is a headlamp a critical item? No. Is it a life-saving item? Is it something that'll make your life incredibly good? Yes, because it allows two-hand operation of you. And that makes that an item that we need to focus on. Buy a headlamp, take that with you, make sure you have spare batteries, and it'll make your life in the wilderness when stranded and or just camping and enjoying the wilderness that much better. So if you like this life-saving knowledge you learn on this channel, please support me by following me on YouTube, listening and liking other videos on this channel, and by following me at the Boreal Wilderness Institute on Facebook. Thank you, stay safe, and if you're stranded in the wilderness, just remember, stop and survive.